This book has been on my Goodreads want to read list for years, literally since 2017. It's on the top of my list, and I have finally decided to finish it, and I'm hoping to read the whole series in this one video, and that series is The Adventurers Guild. This is a middle grades fantasy series, and in my opinion, I feel like middle grade series deserve more love because in my opinion, sometimes they can even be better than YA books. I don't really know what this book is about. I have just started it, so we will figure it out together, but my main goal from now on is to really get through my want to read list because I've had books since 2017, 2018 onwards that have been on my list forever, and I really want to get through them. I finally finished reading The Adventurers Guild, and to give a little explanation of what it's about, we follow the perspective of two characters. So we have Zen. For some weird reason, no, his name is Zed. See, this is the issue. I keep thinking his name is either Zen or Zach. He's half human and also half elf. And then we get the perspective of Brock, who is named after the character from Pokemon. And they are besties. Honestly, they're so cute. Zed is the type of person who is somewhat shy, and he is a little bit cowardly, I would say sometimes, but he's also the type of person that is very positive and very nice to everyone and who you kind of want to protect. And Brock is that protector because he's more outspoken, but the way that he cares for Zed is really cute, and they both really support each other, and I feel like because of that, their friendship really works. The interesting thing about this world is that they live within these walls. So think of Attack on Titan, where the outside is full of dangerous things and then the inside is where all the humans live and it's safe. Within this wall we have certain guilds. For example, Zed's mother is in the servant guild and Brock was born within the merchants guild. So the guild that you are born into, I think, is the guild that you are expected to be part of. But then there's this thing called guild culling, where every single year or something they talk about the whole law of the world and everything, but there are certain guilds that specific people may get chosen into. For example, there is the healer guild, the soldier guild, the mage guild, and also the adventurers guild, which obviously our two characters end up in. The adventurers guild is the guild who are allowed to be outside of that wall, and the whole purpose is to, I guess, fight monsters and kind of patrol and make sure that the ward is protected. So we have wards which obviously keeps they're called dangers away, and they're basically like monsters. It keeps them away from the wall. So the Adventurers Guild role is basically to patrol the area, make sure that everything remains safe. To talk about my thoughts on this book, it was a very entertaining book, very much a fantasy middle grade series type of book. It's very focused on adventure and magic, and it talks about like friendship and teamwork because obviously there are separate guilds, and within these guilds not everybody is going to know each other, and the characters that we get introduced to are initiated, but they obviously don't all know each other besides Brock and Zed. So when they first meet, there is a little bit of friction and they kind of have to learn how to work together. So that's something that I really like about middle grade series, is that they always have some sort of lesson in them, and I love having like friendship groups. So it's really fun because there's a lot of adventures and magic, and also there are these things called dangers, right? As I mentioned, they're the monsters that are outside of the wall, and honestly, while this book was describing them, they sounded so scary that in my mind I conjured up things that I did not want to conjure up, and then at the end of the book they actually had pictures, and I was like, wait, they do not look as scary as I thought that they would. So I don't know why my brain came up with things that were worse. But seriously, these two authors did a really good job at describing the different dangers, and yeah, I'm also scared of them. As of right now, I don't think this plot has fully came through because this is the beginning of the series, and you can really tell that it's the beginning where they're setting up for the rest of the books. This is a trilogy though, so I'm really interested to see how it plays out. But I love the specific trope of the underdog, where the character is looked down upon, which is basically Zed because he's half human and half elf, and he is within one of the poorest guild. And because he is half human, half elf, obviously he has magical powers. So I'm excited to see how that grows. In terms of the plot and the writing, definitely because it is a middle grade novel, it does feel very juvenile in terms of the writing, but honestly, I feel like that's more of a me problem. I'm going to think that way because I'm kind of out of the audience range that should be reading this book. So I don't know. If you want to read a middle grade series, if you have children, I do think that this would be a good series to read. I think the issue that I had with this book is that it's very short, 259 pages, which usually I'm like, yeah, short books. I think that they could be done well, but my issue with this book is that it feels like certain scenes were cut from the book or kind of glossed over. There would be certain revelations where the character would have a hard time bringing it up as they were like afraid of the reactions from the characters, and I swear the characters, they had no reaction at all. It was mentioned, it was passed over, and I'm kind of like, bro, I feel like this is an important thing based on the way that the character telling this thing is acting. I think I was also a little bit confused as well, trying to put the dots together, because I feel like certain things were skipped over, so I didn't feel like I got the whole picture of certain plots. We also then have the ending scene where obviously the whole plot twist gets revealed, and honestly, it was not what I was expecting, which is great, but I also feel like the characters and the way that they acted, I feel like they didn't react enough for what was going on in that scene. And I think another issue is that because it was so short, it feels like it occurred over like a week. And I don't know the timeline. I don't even know how old these characters are. It feels like it happened over like a couple of days. So the way that I think the relationships were written between characters, I feel like the impact that it held during the ending, it just made me confused because I didn't really see that much of the character, so their importance, I was kind of like, okay, whatever, I don't really care about you. And we get multiple characters mentioned. Obviously we have like the main friendship group of the initiates who, you know, come together, and then we get mentions of other people. And I think the issue is when you have multiple characters, some characters really just feel like NPCs. They're just there. With the, I guess, main group, they do have certain characteristics which define them, but I definitely do think that there are probably only like maybe five-ish characters that I truly kind of get a grasp on. And with Zed and Brock, as they are the main like two characters, it's definitely easier to understand their characters, but the other side characters to me just felt like they had no depth to them. Because this is the first book, I do expect that to be expanded on in the other two books, because as of right now, I feel like there's just too many characters and I'm not getting enough of them to care about what happens to them, and side characters in my opinion are just as important as the main characters. But overall, I did really enjoy this book. I'm very interested to see what's going to happen in the second book, especially with how the last book left off. I think the magic system and the world building is very interesting as well. Honestly, I'm a little bit confused, I think, with the idea of the guilds, because Zed's mother is like in the servant guild and then Brock is within the merchant guild, but then there are some people who are guildless, and then we also have nobles as well. So I think this aspect of the book is not super clear. The next book is Twilight of the Elves, and I'm not gonna talk about what the next couple of books are about because I want to keep this video spoiler free so that maybe some people will be interested in reading this trilogy. I'm almost to the halfway point of Twilight of the Elves, and so far I'm really enjoying it. I feel like the writing in this book is a lot better than the first book. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because I'm familiar with the world already, so it's easier for me to dive into. But the writing so far has just been very simple. It's really made me want to get through this book as quickly as I can because I don't know, I really want to read it. I really want to find out what happens. We had a time skip in the beginning from the cliffhanger in the last book, so to be honest, I was a little bit confused. I looked back at the order of the trilogy and I was questioning whether or not this was actually the second book, but it is. As of right now, we've been learning more about the magical system and about the elves, and as of right now, we are going on a quest outside of the walls, so they're having their little adventure, and I love when they go out on quests. As we are near the halfway point, I expect that is where the plot will start picking up. Not saying that the plot is slow or anything, I really like the pacing of it, but because obviously there's something that's going on that we don't exactly know, the ending will obviously be the most exciting part of the book. Oh my god, you guys, I finished reading Twilight of the Elves and I need to read the last book straight away. I literally, when I read the ending, I just sat there and I was like, oh my god, I know that the last book is going to be great already because the things that happened in this book, there was this plot twist which we are kind of leading up to. So I knew that something was going to happen, but still, it really caught me off guard and it was something that I totally didn't expect at all. So that was really surprising. That was really exciting to read. And then the overall ending was also really excited to read. It's such a great way to end the book and make you really excited to read the last one. I really liked the way that this book was written and I loved the banter between the characters as friends. There were certain scenes where I bursted out laughing and I'm pretty sure these scenes weren't supposed to be funny, but I read it and I just laughed and then I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have laughed out loud. But then we also got certain scenes between the characters and their banter was so funny to read, especially because I think as of right now, the characters and their personalities are really defined and each character kind of have their strong points. For example, Liza is a very like strong character. She takes on the leadership role. Everyone kind of follows after her. And then we have Fel, who is an elf. She is more, I guess, sunshiny, somewhat similar to Zed, but kind of different vibes. She's more cheerful, but she just seems very sweet. And then we have Jet, who is a dwarf, who is more, I would say, strong. He's like the support of the group. And then we have Micah, who everyone does not like him, which is so funny. He's also the twin to Liza, but everyone in the group doesn't like him because his main role in the group is to be a healer, but he's not the best type of person. And it's funny because literally the main thing we really know about him is that he is not the greatest person and that he also snores really loudly, which I think is so funny because so many people point it out and they're like, seriously, he's sleeping in the middle of the forest and like his snores are so loud. So I think at this point the characters are just so endearing to read about, and I think as of right now, because there are multiple characters, they do feel more fleshed out, and obviously as it is the second book, we understand more about the world and we've visited the elf region and also we get a little bit more of the magic. And I'm so excited to read the last book because I can already tell that a lot is going to go down in the last book, so hopefully it doesn't disappoint me because I have really high expectations now. So hopefully things would go the way that I think that they are going to go. I also don't know what's going to happen in the last book, but I just feel like it's going to be very exciting to read. So the last book in this trilogy is The Night of Dangers. You know, I really like the covers of these books. They're quite simple, but they're quite cool. And I think this book, the color's green. I don't know, it's such a shame to have a black and white Kindle. I finished reading Night of Dangers and I have to talk about it. I started this book in the morning and I knew when I started it that, oh, I'm in trouble because I am gonna sit down and read this book the whole day. I read it while I was eating because I couldn't stop. It was such a good book and honestly the best conclusion to the end of the trilogy. Just the way that the plot developed from the first book in the trilogy to this one, the transition was so good, and I haven't read a plot similar to the one that is in this book, so this was very interesting for me to read because it felt like something new. Because let's be honest, I feel like YA fantasy series tends to have very similar, I guess, tropes and stuff, but that's why I like reading middle grade series because they always just feel so fresh to me. And the pacing in this book was also so good, and as I mentioned again with the plot and the whole, I guess, not trope, but the certain things that happen in this book, it felt so suspenseful in a way because I was rooting for certain things to happen, and it was frustrating obviously when it didn't go that way. The romance in this book was also cute. I kind of called it when it first happened. I swear when they first met, I was like, I see something between them. It's a very innocent, sweet, childhood kind of romance, but I don't think that this trilogy necessarily needed romance, but it is a cute little addition to the story, and I do feel like it adds to the plot as well. There was this whole revelation, which honestly, I kind of called it. I don't know why I had an inkling that it was going to be this person, and I was right. And part of me was obviously heartbroken that I was right, but literally there were so many aspects of this book where it's this situation when you're reading something and then something gets revealed and you're genuinely like, oh, I did not expect this to happen at all. That's how I felt while reading this book, and it feels so good to have that feeling, being caught off guard, not expecting what's going to happen next. And I just feel like this was the perfect conclusion to the trilogy. The ending was so sweet, and I'm telling you guys, this trilogy is so good. I definitely recommend it. So this one is just really entertaining. It's filled with characters that you grow to love. It has friendship, magic, and other stuff that I don't want to spoil, but trust me, guys, if you love fantasy, read this series.